Hello and welcome back to another episode of Winemaking 101, the series where I answer some of the fundamental questions about winemaking in a precise, condensed, easy to follow way. Today's topic is all about storing your wines and how to store them so that your wine is the best it can be when you pour a glass for yourself. There are 6 main elements you need to be aware of when you're laying your wine down for long-term storage. And these are light levels, vibrations, humidity, temperature fluctuations, and the position of your wine. So I will go through all these in a bit more detail coming up right now. The first key element for you to consider is the light levels of where you're keeping the wine. Light can penetrate through the wine bottle and cause discoloration of your wine. So if you have a red wine, the light, particularly the UV elements of the light, can penetrate through and change your wine colour from a red to a murky brown. And no one really wants to be drinking a murky brown red. The more vibrant the colour, the better it looks in the glass, and presentation is key to winemaking. The light doesn't only affect the wine, it can also affect the wine label. And if you've spent ages designing and printing out wine labels, or you've paid someone else to print them for you on lovely paper, the last thing you want is the light to fade your labels. Again, presentation. You've gone through the effort of fermenting it and making it, and now you want to store it for long term. You don't want the label or the wine to let you down at this very last stage. So you want to keep your wine bottles out of the light, and the same for your demijohns as well. You want to keep them in a dark place where you can. In a cellar, under the stairs, somewhere you don't tend to open up that often and let the light in. And also, light bulbs can fade the wine as well, so don't think it's only daylight. If you keep your wines in a wine rack with a lamp on top, the light from the light bulb will affect your wines. So the darker the place you can squirrel your wines in, the better they're going to be when you pour. The second element is vibrations. If you live next to a train track or near a busy highway or motorway where there's lorries passing day in, day out, you want to be careful about the vibrations shaking your bottles of wine around too much. It doesn't have to be noticeable to you, but your wines will pick up any slight vibrations, and this will prevent the wine from maturing properly. It may not damage your wine, but it certainly wouldn't help the wine to become the best it can be. So if you do live somewhere where there's a lot of vibrations, try to wrap your wine bottles in a layer of newspaper. This just helps to absorb some of the vibration shock. Humidity is the next point. You don't want to be storing your wines in an environment where it's too humid or not humid enough. 70% humidity has been proven to be the ideal optimum humidity to store your wines. This largely applies to wine bottles with the cork in, because you don't want the cork drying out from the outside. If you lay the bottle on the side, the liquid of the wine will keep the inside of the cork dry, but the outside would still be prone to cracking and shrinkage. Then you're going to end up with uneven corks and your wine will escape. If you're using screw cap bottles, not so much of a factor. But for cork wine bottles, it does come into play. So consider that if you're choosing between a screw cap or a cork wine bottle. And the next one is temperature. This is the one that most people stress and worry about. What is the optimum temperature to store your wines? Well, for your red wines, you want it to be between 12 to 19 degrees Celsius. And for white wines, you want it to be between 8 degrees and 12 degrees Celsius. So they say that the ideal range for your cellar is between 11 and 14 degrees C. This way, both your reds and your whites are happy. To be honest, most home brewers, you and I, we don't have cellars and we don't have specialist storage areas where we can regulate the temperature and maintain it to be within this range. We all live in houses with central heating. It is better to keep your wine on the cooler side than the hotter side whilst it matures. As long as your wine is kept above freezing point, you're not going to have many issues. Far better to keep your wine cooler than too hot. High temperatures are more likely to damage the flavour and the aroma of your wine than cold's going to be. So where you can, find the cooler place and darker place. And then, temperature fluctuations. We all live in houses with central heating and air conditioning. We have daily cycles where it's warmer in the day, cooler in the night. We have the seasonal as well, where summer comes, it's baking hot, winter comes, and we're all there under the duvet shivering. The temperature fluctuations are not going to make your wine bad. What they might do is not make your wine perfect. All these things are proven to make perfect wine, that they are the optimal concepts that you need to be thinking of. It is far better for you to make wine, enjoy the process, enjoy drinking it, and not worry too much about making it perfect. If you can, go for it. I always advocate making the best wine you can, but don't stress too much about the fine details of temperature regulation and temperature fluctuation. Saying that, too many temperature fluctuations, if it's changing on a daily cycle from really warm to really cold, it will give your wine a bit of a cooked flavour. And also, the expansion and contraction of the liquid as it warms up and cools down will affect your corks if you use cork in your wine bottles compared to a screw cap. This will lead into shrinkage of your corks and leakage and oxidisation. So bear that in mind. This is one of the reasons I prefer screw caps. You can eliminate a lot of the problems. And the final point is the position of your wine and your wine bottles. This rolls into the whole cork over screw cap issue. If you're using cork in your wine bottles, you want to lay your bottle down side on, because this will keep the inside of the cork moist and prevent the cork drying out and shrinking and preventing all those issues I've just gone over. So cork wine bottles always lie on their sides. Screw caps, on the other hand, it does not matter at all. You can keep them horizontally or vertically. It makes no difference to the wine. If you have bottled your wine and it's a bit cloudy and there's residual sediment in there, keeping it upright will force all the sediment down to the bottle, and it will be easier and better to pour. You won't get so much sediment in the wine glass when you come to drink it. But ideally, you don't want any sediment in there in the first place. So how do I store my wines? I hear you ask. Well, I just use plain old veg crates from shops and places. You can buy these crates online and they're only cheap. They make ideal bottle stores. You can normally fit between 18 and 36 bottles in, depending on the size. I stand mine upright because I use screw caps. I then put these under my workbench and forget about them. My workbench has a tablecloth and it's also inside a shipping container, so it's lovely and dark. It only gets a burst of light when I'm in here working and the door's open, and then the tablecloth prevents a lot of that light hitting the wine bottles. As for temperature fluctuations in my container, it does go up and down. Cold nights, warm days, it's metal, it absorbs the heat and then it absorbs the cold. Noticeably different. I haven't actually measured the temperature range in here, but it is noticeably colder at night. But I am not that worried about the temperature range, because I don't think it is a major issue in homebrew. If I were to pay £100 for a bottle of wine to lay down and store, and I was a collector of wines, then I would obviously care a lot more about the temperature range, because that's the industry, that's the hobby, that's the thing that I take pride in and I'm going after. I collect expensive wines. But for your homebrew, consider all these points and try your best to eliminate as many of the adverse factors, but none of the factors are going to make your wine bad. They're not going to spoil your wine, they're not going to make it undrinkable. All these factors are the optimum factors. They will not damage or make your wine bad or spoil it or make it undrinkable. Winemaking is a process, it's a hobby. It's better for you to enjoy it than stress out about minor things that are above and beyond your control. If you don't have a cellar, if you don't have a specialist temperature controlled room, don't worry about it. Don't go building yourself an extension just to store your home brew. You'd be better off just making a lot more wine, drinking it faster, drinking it sooner, and enjoying it. It is far better to make good quality, good wine, good home brew, and enjoy the hobby and enjoy the process. And it is far better for you to make good home brew than it is to store it in a good environment. So if you want some more tips about how to make some really good home brew, check out this playlist down by here, and I'll see you all soon for the next video. Have fun now.